GameCola faithful, and welcome to the GameCola podcast. This is podcast number 118, and I am your host and podcast commander, Joseph Martin. With me today, we have...
Ayo, it's Colee. I came home from work where I talk about video games to come home and talk about video games.
Hey, it's John. I stopped making videos about video games to come and talk about video games. Yay.
And it's time for the podcast. Who's excited for the podcast?
I'm always excited for the podcast.
It's alright.
Hey, Colee, do you know why you're especially excited for the podcast?
No.
It's because you get to introduce our first topic for today's podcast.
A couple months ago, there were some game awards. I don't remember. I think we talked about it on a past podcast. I feel like we might have mentioned it like once or twice. But there were another like game awards. It was like the DICE Awards, DICE, which probably stand for something, but I don't know what they stand for.
Colee just sort of like showed us like the DICE Awards, and I'm looking at the list of winners.
Nintendo won all of them.
It's so Nintendo.
Except one. I think PUBG was the only game that was not Nintendo that
No,
won
Cuphead's also.
Cuphead is also there, alright.
I mean, like, some of the... Yeah, like, there's Cuphead. There's a couple ones. Senua's Sacrifice. Senua?
Never heard of it.
Or Senua. I don't know what that is.
What are the categories?
The Nintendo
So you've
Award.
got, like, Game of the Year, Breath of the Wild. Outstanding Achievement in Game Direction, Breath of the Wild. Outstanding Achievement in Game Design, Breath of the Wild. Immersive Reality Technical Achievement, Lone Echo Arena. There's some that seem a little... There's a lot of, like, duplicates, too. Breath of the Wild won, like, a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
The thing is, they're not wrong. I honestly don't think they're wrong. I mean...
I don't remember if Metroid Samus Returns... I don't know. I guess I can't really think of a lot of like high profile games that came out this year. Like, and I don't just mean like good games. I just mean like high profile games that came out
like in general
this year. Yeah. Like I'm having trouble like thinking of it.
Well, I know.
And I'm looking at these like other like there was Cuphead, and like I remember that, and Cuphead's got a couple things on these awards.
Last year, I don't remember how recent it was. I can't remember when it released, but Call of Duty World War II was actually like a pretty big deal. Like, people were like, oh my god, it's Call of Duty, they're returning to, like, the whatever Call of Duty does. And everyone was all excited about it, and I heard it did pretty well, and all that, but I don't see it getting any awards.
Not to mention, there's also huge games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Resident Evil 7, for God's sakes, had a lot, came out early in the year.
Horizon Zero Dawn is on here.
Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is basically like the samurai version of Dark Souls, which I hear was amazing. But I haven't played that one myself, but I really want to.
But like here begs the question of, do you think that Nintendo deserves all these?
I'm gonna answer your question by not actually answering it.
Okay. Was that like a super like no-brainer? I mean
No. I think that in wake of the Switch coming out, people may have held off on their hard hitters this past year.
I don't know, because there have been some really popular games that came out.
Because I feel there have been some, but I feel like not as much as usual.
Like Dragon Ball Z Fighters.
When did Monster Hunter come out?
Monster Hunter just came out like
January.
The new Monster Hunter.
January.
Right.
And Dragon Ball Z Fighters.
I feel like in Dragon Ball Z Fighters, was that last month too?
Yeah, that was last month. Granted, most huge games released this early in the year normally have like a December release but are delayed.
Maybe.
I'm wondering if like maybe people held back a little bit because they didn't want to compete with this just like brand new thing that was sort of a wild card.
I don't know. I've always given Nintendo credit to venture into the unknown. Like things that haven't been done before. And this is most definitely something that has not been really done before, and it's been doing incredibly well for them.
Here's the other thing. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out in like March
of last year.
Of last year. Mm-hmm. So, like, a lot of the times, like, Game Awards are very, like, most of the games that win Game Awards are ones that come out near the end of the year because they're fresh in everyone's minds. That's part of why people release so many games in October and November, is because it gets people enough time to play them just in time for all of the Game Awards that happen at the end of the year.
I will respectfully disagree with that because I remember when the Tomb Raider reboot came out, that was nominated for everything, and that came out in like March or February or something like that, along with like the Devil May Cry reboot that came out the same year, which got nominated for a bunch of gameplay stuff, story and character wise. Everyone hated that one.
I'm not saying that it's that award shows exclusively have those games, but I'm saying that, like, the fact that the game that has so consistently won Game of the Year has been Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, like, across the entire board, it's been way up there. People may have been like, let's wait until January, February, and March before we start showing off all of our stuff, because now Nintendo's sort of, like, thrown out all their cards, and... I mean, it's definitely not this year so far has definitely not had as much, like, Nintendo spam as last year. Last year it was, like, constant.
Although I would agree, I mean, I think you're forgetting about an amazing title that is coming out next month, in the middle of next month, that I'm very excited for.
Are you talking about Kirby?
I am talking about Kirby Star Allies.
Kirby is a very good game, but I don't think it carries quite the same.
It's not
power
Zelda.
Punch that
you know what though?
Zelda and Mario
They've been posting, like, Nintendo has been posting so many Kirby tweets, like, videos, and it looks phenomenal.
I mean, I agree. It looks phenomenal. They're advertising it, but it does not, like, Zelda and Mario are games that are old enough that they can, even though they're still quote unquote made for kids, in the sense that they're usually, like, set to have, like, difficulty sort of implementations at the very least that make it so that they're very accessible to all age groups. Kirby is a lot more, you have to really know what you're doing with Kirby to get the challenge out of it, right? If you just look at Kirby and just play it straight, it's going to seem like a baby game for babies because you can't fall into pits because you can fly. And there is challenge to be found in it, but you have to, like, know, like, oh, if I collect all the things, first of all, that will be a bigger challenge, and second of all, it'll unlock more challenging content. But if you just see a Kirby game at face value without really knowing about it, yeah, it's an easy baby game for babies. If you just try it. If your only goal is just to beat it.
Just get from the title screen to credits.
I don't think it's going to have quite the same, like, it's not going to dip into the same pockets that Zelda and Mario do. Kirby is very popular within Nintendo's fan base, but I don't think it extends beyond, like, core Nintendo fans nearly as much as Mario and Zelda do.
Breaking my heart.
So I don't think, and additionally, that's one game, and that's sort of like the only really big one I can think of. I may be missing stuff. I mean, Nintendo's exclusive.
Well,
because remember we had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and Splatoon 2 and the Fire Emblem game or whatever. The Fire, yeah, whatever that was. Xenoblade 2. Like, a lot.
Well, I mean,
I can't even remember all of them.
There are... I mean, Bayonetta just recently...
I'm not saying there aren't games coming, they're not coming out. I'm just saying it's so much... And I don't mean it as a complaint, because I think that the idea was to really hit hard this year. But now that we're getting into the next year, I think we might see more from companies of, like, okay, now we don't have to compete with Nintendo's huge PR push that they're putting everything into. We won't have to spend as much money to be noticed.
I mean...
Whereas if you were trying to advertise a game last year to be noticed over Nintendo's, like, giant budgetary bet that could have failed really bad if people hadn't bought Switches, you might not have been seeing quite as... that's the last part of the sentence didn't come together, I'm sorry.
It's like,
I think you probably, if you're listening, you can probably tell where I was going with that. Anyway, Colee, what were you saying?
There's still a lot of, like, big titles that are still, like, going to be coming out in the near future. Like, Hyrule Warriors is getting a definitive edition that is coming out sometime, I think in spring or summer. Mario Tennis Aces is going to be coming out also in the spring. And you've got Donkey Kong, Tropical Freeze? That's coming out in May. And then, I don't know how popular Scribblenauts is with people, but Scribblenauts Showdown is coming out as well on the 6th of March. So,
But a lot of those are based off of things that have already gotten a lot of publicity. Most of those
are remasters.
Yeah, remaster. Aside from Kirby, all of those are remasters of ports, which don't carry quite the same amount of force as, like, I would say, Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade, and Mario Odyssey, I think, and Fire Emblem. Like, that's 5 big original games.
I mean,
think, was Fire Emblem... What was the Fire Emblem game?
Fire Emblem Warriors.
Fire Emblem Warriors. What was... Oh, is it... Yeah. I mean, I guess that works with Hyrule. But, like, that was the first Fire Emblem version of that, right? Yeah. This Zelda one is, like, a combination of the 3DS and the Wii U one. So it's not, like, a new game.
Yeah, it's those games just with, like, all the DLC added into it.
The Mario Tennis is kind of a new game, because they're adding a story mode.
I mean, yeah, but, like, it's also Mario Tennis. And it looks like a very good version of Mario Tennis, but it's still Mario Tennis. And that's not going to dip into the pockets of the people
I don't know.
who have other systems, as much as I feel like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and a lot of last year's content dipped into those same pockets. And I think now this year we're going to see a lot of game companies sort of try to come back now that the Nintendo blast of marketing for the Switch too. Like I don't think Nintendo can economically continue to push the Switch as hard as they did last year. So I think it really is like a matter of marketing and business strategy over like necessarily game quality. Not to say that the games aren't good, but like I think this whole past year was part of a really coordinated push by all of the markets of Nintendo to make the Switch as least of a Wii U as possible.
I mean, there are some like cool titles that are coming out for like Xbox, PS4. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 is something that like everybody has been looking forward to,
myself included.
And then I think there's a new Far Cry.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption, Far Cry 5, God of War is supposed to come out this year.
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The new Spider-Man game I can't wait for. But that's just me. What else am I missing? I know there's a crap ton that I'm missing right now. We already had Dragon Ball FighterZ.
So yeah, I think this upcoming year we'll see a bit less of a landslide like we saw in conferences like DICE, and I think that Nintendo, like, because award shows, any award show, not just video game ones, come down to like who played what games, and so like everyone heard about Nintendo games, everyone in the industry heard about Nintendo games. Nintendo made sure about that.
Oh, right.
And I think that's why they're so represented in the Game Awards. Just like with a lot of games, a lot of the time it comes down to how much advertisement and media coverage did they get. And then the game's quality is related, but it's not the only. And depending on the Game Awards, again, I'm not familiar with the internal systems of any particular Game Awards to the point where I would criticize any particular one.
Right.
But you don't know what the internal structure is, and so it depends on what things are taken into account and how wide a spread you have in the market and who's talking to who and all sorts of things. So I would not be strong enough to say that Nintendo dominated because they were the only people who made good games.
No, but look at what consoles came out. Like, you had the Xbox One X and the One S, and there really isn't, although I would say, like, there is a difference, but not in the same way there was a difference between the Wii U and the Switch. All they really did with those is just like, hey, this has, like, 4K output, better processor, blah, 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 and same thing with the PlayStation 4 Pro. It just runs, better, nicer. But they didn't, like, hardcore reinvent themselves like Nintendo did. And I think that's also part of the reason why they've gotten so much attention.
They had a lot more to deal with. More creative direction than most of them.
And I mean, like, yeah, that's sort of, I feel like Nintendo's been going down this path for a long time of like, all right, we can't keep up with the big guns who are pushing graphical quality.
I don't think it's because they can't keep up. I'm damn sure they can, but they just don't want to.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
They want to make it.
with their current design philosophy, they can't. Like, the way that they approach making games and making hardware, particularly making hardware that is accessible to young children,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., parents of young children. They can't push the graphical quality and their separation, sort of like what makes, quote unquote, what makes whatever console special, whatever its gimmick is. They can't do both and also provide a console that's affordable to enough people. You know, like the Wii. Like, the whole thing with the Wii was that, like, part of the reason it was so popular was because it was just so much cheaper than the alternatives.
I mean, even now, Switch is still, like $300. It's one of the cheapest consoles on the market.
And so, yeah, Nintendo's just, but then, like, the mobile market starts competing with the handheld market, and the consoles, in terms of just pure graphical fidelity, the other consoles are beating them, so they just need to find their own niche and sit there and be like, ha, we're the only ones doing this, so we're the best by default.
I mean, don't they, already do that? Just because of, the games they release, the Mario and Zelda and everything. I kind of feel like, in a sense, they already have that. And it's funny because sometimes when I'm at work, it kind of hurts when, a parent will come and approach me, and they'll, make some comment, when do you think my kid's gonna grow out of Nintendo? And I'll be like, ma'am, I'm, gonna be 23 soon, and I still play Nintendo. It's like, they might never grow out of it, and it's honestly personal preference as to what games that they like.
Yeah, I think Nintendo is, struggling to throw off its image as, a kiddie console place, or kiddie game place, while also not losing the children market. They definitely want to keep that market that they have, but at the same time, I'm sure they're looking to expand.
Well, they're slowly working
and that's
their
why
way.
you see games. That's why I think you see games like Bayonetta.
Yeah, and LA Noire.
That's definitely part of their push to sort of be like, yes, children buy our thing, but also other people, please.
If you buy your kid Bayonetta 2 on the Switch, you good lord. Holy crap.
I've seen people come in and buy Grand Theft Auto 5 for their kids. And it's
true.
That's just
obviously,
a problem.
But,
that problem's existed forever.
Forever, yeah.
No, parents don't look at the maturity rating levels.
Either that or some just don't care.
They just want their kids to be the popular kids in the block.
Or they just want their kids to leave them alone.
That too.
Mommy didn't buy me this game. She's horrible. I don't know what kind of voice was.
Yeah, the thing is with Nintendo, I think you said it before, they're just, they're trying to please both demographics. It's basically when people talk about Star Wars and how so many people are attached to it and how big and huge it is, it's still made for kids. No matter which way you look at it, Star Wars will always and still be made for kids. So, but the appeal of it comes from the story and just the setting. It appeals to audiences worldwide and of all ages. So, and I think that's what Nintendo is doing, because Breath of the Wild, yes, it's bright and colorful, and yes, it mainly appeals to kids, but god damn, is it a hard game. Any kid that plays that game is gonna get their butt kicked, and even I know many adults who play that game religiously, and they still get their butt kicked every now and then.
I forget. Have both of you played Breath of the Wild to some extent, or?
Oh yeah, no, I played the Wii U version.
Okay.
And I beat it.
But you can still play it. There's so much to do that even if you're not beating it, you can still play it very easily.
Oh yeah, of course. It's an easy pick up and play game. Even if you're a kid and you don't know what's going on or where to go, whatnot, it's still just fun to walk around and just discover stuff.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I just finished Breath of the Wild a couple days ago because I've been getting ready for Kirby Star Allies. I've been going through my games. I'm like, okay, what haven't I played? What have I started playing and dropped? I'm like, I need to get either most of the way through or beat these games before Kirby Star Allies comes out, because that is all I'm going to be playing until I beat Kirby. And so I wanted to give Zelda a lot more love and more of my attention because it deserved it, and I just had a blast playing it, And it's gorgeous. There's so much to do. If you don't want to, do one thing, you don't have to do it. Like, most of the stuff isn't necessary to beat the game. It's a wonderful game. It really is.
And that was our review of Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild.
Don't check your phone.
You've got mail.
It's time for fan mail. Hooray! Who's ready for fan mail?
I'm ready.
This month's fan mail comes to us from Dale Kulas. I'm going to pretend like that was me saying your name in a cool way and not that I wasn't 100% sure how to pronounce it. And
Uncertain.
Dale writes, what up, GameCola? Just thought I'd pass along something the staff may be interested in. A couple times a year, I guest host a friend's podcast where they discuss a random retro game each week. I loved your Crystalis-themed D&D podcast series, and it inspired me to buy both the GBC and NES versions. They have been sitting in the backlog forever, though, until a few weeks ago when I was asked to come on again and pick what game to play. This past month, I picked away at Crystalis and finished it a couple nights ago and immediately started the GBC version right after. I had a blast breaking down the game on the podcast and discussing it with my friends, and made sure to give your Crystalis cast a plug for everyone to check out. Here's a link for you guys if you're interested.
What was that?
I'm not gonna say the link out loud.
It's like, are you like drowning or something?
Did you get drunk halfway through reading that email?
The name of the podcast is Your Parents' Basement. And it's episode 148 if you want to check it out. That's something that I did by myself. That's not written in the email. It's just a link. And it says, much belated thanks again to your excellent D&D line of Crystalis shows to motivate me to try them out. Thanks for writing, Dale. It's always nice to hear that people are listening to the podcasts that we do, like the Crystalis D&D podcast and the Secret of Mana RPG cast that we're doing right now. Hosted by our very own Alex Jedrzak, where I play a little sprite that makes contemporary references.
Why does that seem so fitting for you?
Yeah, that's the D&D podcasts are a lot of fun. It's also like, it's definitely in right now. Like, I don't know, if you listen to podcasts, which you do because you're listening to the GameCola podcast right now.
Only brought to you by GameCola.net.
You've probably noticed that, like, D&D RPG podcasts are, like, the thing now. Like, even, like, the ones that we did, like, years ago have suddenly been getting a lot more attention. Just because, like, D&D podcasts and RPG tabletop podcasts are huge right now.
I just want to, like, just add a little bit to that. D&D, I, like, never really, I really started getting into it, like, last year when a friend of mine was like, hey, you should totally play with us. And I was like, well, I've never played before, so you're gonna have to hold my hand a little bit while I learn. And he's like, oh yeah, no, totally cool. And, I know, Joe, you missed the little mini session that Anna hosted the other night, and we had so much fun. D&D is just such a fun way to create memories and, to make new friends. Because I never really had talked with James or Paul terribly much, and so this is, like, kind of given me a chance to be able to, like, get to know them a little bit better, and, also not to just get to know them, but also to get to know the characters better.
Just to clarify for the viewers, you are talking about James and Paul of GameCola fame, and not just two people you know named James and Paul.
No, those are just two random names we gave them.
No, those are just, like, the first names that came to my head, and I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll call them that. Next time I'm gonna I don't actually know. Next time it's gonna be, it's gonna be Nick and, I don't know, Tommy.
So yeah, I'm looking at the Google Trends of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's a big spike around October of last year.
Interesting.
What happened October of last year?
Is it...
wait.
Was that when...
Hold on, is it this?
Didn't Magic the Gathering get an update? Like a new expansion card expansion pack or something around then.
You know what it was? You know what it was?
What was it?
It was Stranger Things.
Oh,
Stranger
that's
Things
right.
Season 2 came out then.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, that's right. Because I know some people who made their own Stranger Things like a D&D tabletop game. Oh my god, yeah, that became really popular.
So, like, yeah, I think a couple things aligned, because they were also, like, I think some other D&D podcast, I think they're sometimes called actual play podcasts in general, when it's not just Dungeons & Dragons. There's some actual play podcasts that started getting popular around then. I think the big ones off the top of my head are Dice Camera Action, Critical Role, and The Adventure Zone. So yeah, I guess like it's just I mean maybe it's just one of those things where the stars align, because it's definitely been getting like popular. Like there have been a lot of groups that have started forming on campus here. Like I've got a group on campus, and then like one of the sisters of one of the people in my group is also in their own D&D group that formed around the same time. So like it's like there's definitely like some kind of swing back, and maybe it is Stranger Things, and then there also being like this huge underbelly of previously established material for people who are like, hey, I'm interested in Dungeons and Dragons. Look at all this stuff that exists about it. And then it's sort of like getting back. Because again, like when did we did that Crystallis D&D podcast like a while ago.
Yeah, that was, oh my god. I think I was still in middle school when I first saw that. I'd say that was like 7 years ago.
October 1st, 2012.
Oh, jeez.
The end day. 6 years ago. It's 5 to 6. Because it was in October, so it's like 5.5-ish. It's just interesting to me. I mean, and like I can't speak as like I'm not trying to sound like I'm someone who's like, oh, all these new people getting into this thing that I like. I'm the same.
Welcome.
I started this like October basically. I think part of it was Jetty and I doing talks about the next RPG cast to do, because we went through a couple of ideas, and some of them we might come back to. We settled on Secret of Mana because we thought it would have. Jetty had some good ideas for it, and we thought it would be interesting because Secret of Mana was getting a reboot, remake sort of thing at the time. So like, just it would be in people's brains again, and then the format for it also makes for some really fun stuff, since you've got like that 3-character sort of thing, and it's interesting playing like pre-existing characters. Because usually in an RPG, like a tabletop RPG, you make up a character that is put into a prefabricated world. But we are currently playing interpretations of pre-existing characters. And I think that is an interesting thing to go with, because then it's more like playing a role and less like just playing yourself. Not to say that my style of humor does not very much inform the character choices of the sprite character, but it is as someone as having played like just original characters in different settings, it's a different way of thinking about it, because it's not just what you want to do. You've got to take what you have and make it into something fun.
So if you like D&D podcasts, please stay tuned to GameCola.net. Has anyone played the recent Secret of Mana remake?
No.
Cool.
I mean, I'm sure someone has.
I mean...
Yeah, no one has played it ever.
Oh,
Sorry, you're out of
Joe,
luck.
you... We already had a podcast where we kicked you out, so I think if we do that again, we'll just seem stale at this point.
You know, while we're on the subject of games, but like not quite video games, who here has played Betrayal at House on a Hill?
Oh my god.
I've seen
I am so bad at it.
I've seen the movie House on the Haunted Hill.
That is such an interesting game. It really is.
It is. I enjoy playing it with friends. I'm not entirely sure I like it.
Okay.
I've played it so much. I play it a lot, so I don't know. But okay, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Betrayal at House on a Hill is now I'm thinking about it, maybe I should have explained D&D, but like I feel like that's enough in the public consciousness that it doesn't really need much explanation.
Right, yeah.
But Betrayal at House on a Hill is a tabletop game, I guess kind of a board game, but like, basically you're in a house, you move onto tiles, and like tiles, basically you draw room card or room tiles that like make the house randomly as you explore it. There's different things that happen, but the main mechanic is that after you explore enough of the house, a haunt starts, and depending on what room your character is in and what like haunt card, it's called an omen card, but like a certain card in a certain room gives you a certain haunt where one of the characters usually becomes a bad guy.
The traitor.
And then it becomes the traitor, the betrayer, and then they have a goal and you have a goal, and it becomes you versus them. So it starts out collaboratively and then becomes some kind of competition.
So it's like at the beginning, like, you know, you're all like, yay, let's like work together. Halfway through, it's like, all right, we have to make the haunt roll. And every time it is like suspenseful, like, oh my god. And it's like, okay, you failed. And it's like, oh. And like everyone's like just heart sinks. It's like, please not me. Please not me. And then when you like, oh, so-and-so is it? And you're just like sitting there like, when it's you, you're like, well, guess I lose. I've never won as the traitor. I've always lost. I never know what I'm doing.
Here's my issue with it. Like, some of the haunts, just like, depending on if you're playing with a few people or with a lot of people, or like how much of the house you've explored, some of the haunts just like end up not being fun. Like, we did one yesterday where basically, like, I won't spoil it, because half of this game is like not being spoiled because you don't know what a haunt is, and like there's like the traitor doesn't have the same information that the players does, so I won't like spoil this particular one. But the basic idea was that we all had to get into certain rooms in a certain order in order to defeat the traitor. But because there were 5 of us, there's 6 maximum players, there were 5 of us, and we had explored so much of the house, we could just get into all the rooms on the first turn. So it was over like in 2 turns. So I think instead, my personal idea would be that instead, I mean, like, you can't backwards engineer it at this point, but what I would have done is have the style of haunt be contingent on either like the amount of players playing, or like have some relation to the amount of players playing, or how much of the house has been explored, so that you could tune the haunt to like what was going on, rather than try to make one that's fun no matter what, because a lot of the time they're just like incompatible.
I don't know though, like, it's pretty cool, like, some of the things that you can do though. Like, you get like items and just a lot of stuff can happen. Like, each character has different stats and, you know, all of that jazz, and so each time you play is, you know, can be pretty different, especially since you make the house as you go. But, I mean, it's still, every time the traitor is found out, just the whole entire mood of the game changes a lot.
Why don't we move on into games we've been playing? I'm gonna start, because I can decide that. I've been playing Advance Wars 2, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I found the old cart in my stuff, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more fun than the first one. Partially because in the first one you only got to play... Advance Wars is like, if you played Fire Emblem, it's a similar sort of system, except instead of fantasy, it's military. Basically, you're given units. You can also build units in certain maps. And you have these military units, like basic ground troops to like tanks to planes to boats. And you just like, you know, try to capture objectives or like do certain things. It depends on the story mode. But in the first game, you got to pick like a CO, a commanding officer, that like had a special ability that could be used partway through the game. And like there's ways to charge up your super meter and whatever. But like in the first game, during the story mode, you only got to play like one of 3 of the protagonist countries' COs. And so it wasn't quite as interesting. But now they let you play as like all the different countries. And so it's a lot more engaging. Instead of having an opponent whose like abilities just constantly change and you don't know what to expect. Instead, you are presented with similar but slightly more difficult situations as you move through the game, but different tools to accomplish goals that you are familiar with. And I think that works a lot better than do the same thing over and over again, but the bad guys can punch you in ways that you weren't expecting. I don't know. It's engaging because I have both, and it's just engaging me a lot more than the first one did. It also, I haven't had a chance to use this, but Advance Wars has this really cool like map builder multiplayer thing where you can just build a map and then play against someone with it. Like you can just do it, and it's very in depth. You basically can make pretty much anything that already exists, except for like weird story stuff. Like sometimes the bad guys get like a giant cannon. That's like, you can't just give that to someone. But like most of the maps you can just recreate. It's funny because there's one level in Advance Wars 2 where they try to come up with a plot reason for it, but it's basically just like a map where someone just like put random stuff everywhere, and it's really fun to like play on a map that isn't just like, oh yes, this makes sense to put this here and these mountains make sense here, and it's like, no, it's just spam, and they made a level out of it, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know, have either of you played this game?
What is it for?
Game Boy Advance.
No, never.
Hence the term Advance Wars.
Yeah.
Every game on the Game Boy Advance had the word advance in it somewhere.
Because it's the Game Boy Advance. But, shit.
Ah.
Okay.
Joke is dead.
John, save the joke. What games have you been playing?
I recently found a pawn shop near campus, where they sell a whole collection.
So you were able to complete your chess set?
Yes. They sell they sell a bunch of stuff, movies, comics, and a crap ton of video games from like any generation. And I picked up, like, I splurged and I picked up all 3 of the original Lord of the Rings video games. That's being Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King, and Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, which I've heard good things about, but I've not played that yet. So far, I've only been able to play Fellowship of the Ring, and it's cute, I would say. It's really weird because that one is not movie licensed, but the other 2 are, for some reason, despite it coming out a year after the first movie. So I don't know what happened there. I think like 2 companies had rights and whatnot, and so after the second and third movies came out, EA got the license to make games based on the movies.
So the first one was just based on the book and couldn't use any stuff from the movies, is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with the first Hobbit game. I think there was one on like the GameCube and Xbox also, but that was just based on the books. But yeah, the Fellowship of the Ring it's a cute game. So far I haven't played too much of it, but what I can gather, it's you just wander around Middle Earth, going from environment to environment. Like every level is divided into a different section of Middle Earth. First level is obviously the Shire, where you're just wandering around doing chores for people, and it's cute. It's pretty cute so far. And then as soon as you like go off on your journey, the Nazgul come after you, and it's suddenly turns into the scariest shit in the world, trying to avoid these basically Death Eaters on horses. And if you get caught, they growl at you in their huge voices, like, surrender the ring. I'm doing a terrible impression right now, but yeah, it's pretty scary. It turns into a neat little stealth game after a while, especially if you're on like the hardest difficulty or whatnot.
So it's like a third person, sort of.
Yeah, it's a third person action adventure. Yeah. It's kind of open world, but not really. You just sort of go from like level to level that has like different story connections. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the back of the box shows you playing as Gandalf and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure Frodo is not the only person you can play as. And the voice acting's really good. A lot of familiar voices are attached to it that I recognize. I don't know my names, but I just know the voices I've heard a lot because. The person who voice acts Gandalf voice acts Professor X in the Marvel in the X-Men video games. It seems really well made for its time. It's the original Xbox version, so the graphics look a little iffy. I remember seeing screenshots of the PC and PS2 versions where everything was way more detailed, texture-wise. But yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. Can't wait to play that Indiana Jones game. Colee.
What video games have you been playing in recent times?
Trying to think. I've also kind
You've
of
had the most time to think. You went last.
I've also kind of been buying a lot of like older games, but I haven't really been playing them. I've been streaming on Twitch more, so the most recent game that I actually played and also beat was a game called Cat Quest, which is available on Steam and also on Switch. It is a RPG where you're a cat, and your goal is to save your sister by defeating dragons. So, if you like puns, then this is definitely the game for you. There's tons of cat puns littered in it. Not even kidding you, they're everywhere. Like, in almost everything of dialogue, there's at least a cat pun somewhere.
That sounds perfect.
It is perfect. So, there's that, and then I recently beat Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but I'm not going to talk too much about that since everyone pretty much, we've talked about it before, we talked about it a lot this podcast, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that one, but I have been playing Mario and Rabbids.
Was you beating it the reason that you posted like 1 million clips on Twitter?
Yes.
You posted so many things! So many! I could not watch them all. My phone broke because it was like, there's too many videos.
Your phone broke?
Gonna crash
the
now.
battery didn't die. Your phone physically broke.
Twitter basically just froze. And I couldn't scroll past it because each time it was a new video and Twitter's like, now I gotta load this one. Now I gotta load this one.
Well, okay, it was a combination of all of my playing. I just would forget to upload things to Twitter after I was done. And then when I got, like, to the end, or was like, oh, I wanted to upload stuff, I was like, wait, there is all this other stuff I forgot to upload. I'll just do it all now.
Oh my God.
So I was just uploading it all, and I was like, oh my god, like, I'm so sorry for people who follow me on Twitter, because I just, like, blew up your timelines there a little bit.
But you weren't actually sorry because you did it.
I kept doing it. So, I recently started playing Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Mm. Is it as good as people said it was surprisingly good?
You mean XCOM?
Honestly,
you mean XCOM with colors, as other people say?
I was really surprised, to be honest, because I thought it was kind of just going to be like, okay, well, when you finish one stage, you go to the next stage, and you go to the next stage, and then you win. But there's actually a lot of exploration in between. So you have one fight, and then you kind of walk around and explore until you get to the next fight. So it's a lot of fun. I really like the design that they went with, and they chose. I'm not really too fond of the Rabbids, but they're annoying and they're supposed to be that way. They're supposed to be funny, but they do a really bad job at it. But it's still...
They're the minions before the minions.
Right, that's exactly what I've heard other people say. But I mean, it's still like a really fun game. I really like it. I'm glad I got it. Like I said, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting it would be, so that's also really cool.
So, the like little in-between segments of Mario and Rabbids, are those actually like fun? Like, I don't know, for me it sounds like, oh, in between the levels I gotta like walk around for a while and walk into coins for a while and find a bunch of just stuff.
It's
around.
Not just coins, it's like, oh, hey, look, I could get a new weapon by, like, there's, the red coins thing, they have that in between levels. So you find the red ring, and then you go find the coins, and you are timed. I actually did not know that, because it doesn't, like, do a timery sound like it used to. It only does it, like, when they're about to disappear. And I'm just walking along, I'm like, yeah, there's no time limit, so I'll just take my time. And then I started hearing it, and I'm like, oh no, where's the 8th one? And then I didn't find it. And I had to go redo it. So...
Okay, so there's more to do than just walk into coins and concept art.
There's switches that you can flip to unlock certain areas so you can get more stuff. There's cannons that can blast you off to little, like, areas. Like, there's this one blue cannon that when you go in it, it takes you to this one room with a ton of blue coins, and you have to get all of them in the time limit. If you do, you get something. So, yeah, there's more to it than just, like, literally walking around, finding coins, going to the next one, and then walking and finding coins, and then going to the next one. And then, promise, last one, I remember the name as I was telling you that it's Graceful Explosion Machine. So, your little rocket ship...
gracefully exploding.
Yes! It's not, like, too expensive. It's, like, it's just your little spaceship, and you shoot, like, little baddies. And you get different weapons, like, you got a missile, you got a little blaster, you get, like, this, like, laser thing, and you have, like, a more melee thing, so there's a lot of different options to beat up the little baddies with. It's a lot of fun. It's very colorful, too.
Woo!
That was it. End of explanation of Graceful Explosion
That's
Machine.
the games we've been playing.
Yeah.
Are we ready to wrap things up for the night? It's very late. We're a little
very
sleepy.
late.
I'm just actually here. I'm just gonna hold on.
We're all overworked and underpaid.
Yes. Oh my god, yes. Big mood.
Well, Joe's dead.
Thanks for listening to the GameCola podcast. If you like what you heard, you can like and subscribe. You can follow us on You can go to GameCola.net and look up other articles and podcasts that we do on our actual internet website, GameCola.net. Or you can check us out on our YouTube channel. GCDotNet. The letter G, the letter C,
the word dot,
the word,
and the word net.
John, what are you doing?
I'm trying to help you out.
He's too sleepy.
You're
Give the
too
man a
sleepy.
break.
I'm already doing the thing.
Joe,
You don't
go to
need
bed.
to.
You're too tired.
To.
You're too
I'm
tired.
Joe, do you want me to
doing
tuck you
it.
in?
I bet if they're listening to
I'm
this in the middle of the
doing
day, they are
it.
so confused right now.
I'm doing it. It's fine. Don't worry.
I'll tuck you in, Joe. It's fine.
We've got Thank you. We've got Facebook. That's very comfy. Facebook and Twitter, social media. You can follow us there. And you can see all the cool stuff that we post about on those things. You can talk to Anna, our social media trash queen. That's the name she picked for herself. You can talk to her. She's nice. She's nice. You should talk to her.
I think he's actually drunk right now.
Follow us on Twitch. You can follow us on iTunes. Yes, you can listen to podcasts on iTunes, like the GameCola podcast. And if you like it, you can rate it 5 entire stars.
Ooh. That adds up to a 10 out of 10.
You can share us with your friends. Maybe you're listening to this podcast as you're getting ready to go to bed, like I am right now, going to
You're
bed.
You're not listening to it.
You can share it. I'm listening as I'm talking. You have to do both.
Get your flashlight.
You can share it with a friend, and they can also listen to it as they go to sleep. And it's very nice. Podcasts are great for that. And you can especially listen to this part, where I'm very sleepy, and so it'll make you and your friends sleepy.
Where Joe does ASMR.
It's not ASMR. This would be ASMR. Hold on, I have to smack my lips a little bit more.
Oh my god.
This has been the GameCola podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Like, what is happening?
I'm probably gonna cut some of that out because it probably sounds pretty terrible. Thanks for listening.
Make it a blooper.
Leave that part in. Leaving that part in.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you next month. I'm gonna sleep until then. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Hold on, I'm looking up something real quick.
What you looking up?
I'll see if it's interesting first.
Fair.
GameCola podcast, discovering topics on the fly.
I can cut things
I
out,
know.
John.
No, let's keep this in.